Want to speak real Korean from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at KoreanClass101.com.
Hi everyone, I'm Jae-hui. In this video, we'll be talking about 10 phrases to amaze native speakers. Let's begin. 10년 동안 한국어를 배웠습니다. I've been learning Korean for 10 years. Wow, you'll be so surprised if someone says 10년 동안 한국어를 배웠습니다. First, I think it's because not many foreign people learn Korean for over 1 year. I know some people who learn the basic things from the Korean songs, Korean dramas, but not like for over 1 year really studying. So if someone says 10년 동안 한국어를 배웠습니다, that would be amazing to see. 3년 동안 원어민처럼 한국어를 할 거예요. I'll speak Korean like a native speaker in 3 years. You know, if you want to say that you have a strong goal, you can say something like 3년 안에 or 1년 안에 원어민처럼 말할 거예요. Or give more specific things, something like 3년 안에 한국어로 강의를 할 거예요. 3년 안에 한국어로 영어를 가르칠 거예요. Then native speakers like me will be very impressed and very surprised to hear that. And I might want to do everything that I want to do to help the other people to make this goal. 감사하지만 전 사실 원어민이 아니에요. Thank you, but I'm not a native speaker actually. That's actually my goal to say that. I want to say something like, thank you, but actually I'm not a good native speaker or something like that. 감사하지만 전 사실 원어민이 아니에요. Thank you, but I'm not actually a native speaker. 유창해지기까지 1년밖에 걸리지 않았어요. It took me only 1 year to become fluent. If that's true, then you can proudly say that 유창하기까지 1년밖에 걸리지 않았어요. 2년밖에 걸리지 않았어요. Then people are very surprised to hear that. 자막 없이 한국 영화를 볼 수 있습니다. I can watch Korean movies without subtitles. If you live in Korea, I think you already know that there's some movie theater that you can see Korean movies with English subtitles. But that movie theaters are not that good. It would be great if you can just see them without subtitles. Yeah, some Korean comedy movies would be good if you want to improve your Korean and also watch Korean drama without subtitle in the future. 하루에 약 50개 새로운 한국어 단어를 외울 수 있습니다. I can memorize around 50 new Korean words a day. So here we have 하루에, a day, and 새로운 한국어 단어, meaning new Korean words. Well, actually, I think anyone can memorize 50 Korean words if they spend enough time to do that. But it's not easy to do that every day. So if someone says 새로운 단어를 하루에 50개 외울 수 있습니다, that would be surprising because that means that someone is learning Korean seriously. 하신 말씀 모두 다 완벽히 이해했습니다. I completely understood everything you said. So if you say 하신 말씀을 모두 완벽히 이해했습니다, that means that I didn't miss anything. Especially at work, like if you say that, it's going to impress your boss because, you know, that means that I'm listening, I can understand every single thing that you said. 한국어 외에 다른 언어도 몇 개 할 수 있습니다. Apart from knowing Korean, I can speak a few other languages as well. So if you have other languages that you can speak, even though it's not fluent, just like at the beginning level, you can say 한국어 외에 something something도 말할 수 있습니다. 한국어 외에 일본어도 중국어도 말할 수 있습니다. 한국어 외에 프랑스어도 독일어도 말할 수 있습니다. To say that you speak, you know, few other languages apart from English and Korean. 한국어는 재미있고 배우기 쉬워요. Korean is fun and easy to learn. Here we have the adjective 재미있다, fun, and 쉬워요, easy. So that means that you really enjoy learning Korean. Not only to make the other people amazed, I think with saying this, you can also find many native speakers who want to help you to improve your Korean because who would not want to, you know, help someone who really like enjoying learning Korean. 혼자 한국어를 공부하고 있습니다. I'm learning Korean all by myself. So here we have the word 혼자, meaning alone, all by oneself. Actually, there are many people learning Korean by themselves. So if you learn Korean all by yourself, Later, when you get a chance to visit Korea and talk with Korean people in Korean, just simply say 혼자 한국어를 공부했습니다. I've been learning Korean all by myself. Okay, that's all 10 phrases to amaze native speakers. Have you done any of this? Please leave us a comment in Korean. Make sure to subscribe and I'll see you next time. 다음 시간에 뵙겠습니다. 안녕히 계세요. Hi everybody, Jay here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Korean questions. The question for this lesson is, how do I use the pronoun you in Korean? Basically, the word 당신 means you in Korean, but it doesn't mean you the same way it does in English. If you're a fan of K-pop or Korean dramas, you'll hear this word a lot. But please be careful. You'll use this pronoun only when you're talking to two types of people, those you love and those you hate. If, for example, you say 당신 to your husband or wife, it'll mean something like honey or darling. However, if you're angry, you can also use the pronoun 당신 to initiate conflict with someone. In Korean, as with Japanese, we don't use you so often because it sounds really strong. Instead, people usually use the person's name followed by an honorific suffix such as "씨" to refer to someone they are speaking to in a conversation. For example, 재휘 씨 is like saying Mr. 재휘. Unlike in English though, the "씨" added on the end is natural and conveys respect. People will also use job titles in place of "씨", such as 선생님. This literally means teacher, but it can also function like Mr. or Mrs. too. Because you or 당신 is so strong in Korean, you can only use it for people you want to direct strong feelings toward. If the person you want to address is someone like a stranger or a co-worker, it's better to use the honorific suffix "씨" or their job title, as we mentioned earlier. If you want to address a group of people, you can use the word 여러분, meaning everyone. I hope that clears things up. Pretty interesting, right? Do you have any more questions? Leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. See you next time. 다음 시간에 만나요. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Welcome back to Korean Weekly Words. I'm Jae-hui and let's see what we have for this week. This week's theme is studying a language. Okay, first one is 동사, which means verb. There are a lot of verbs in Korean. So you can say 동사는 한국어를 배울 때 가장 어려운 부분입니다. Which means verbs are the most difficult part when you study Korean. Next we have 반복하다, which means to repeat. With the word you can say Then what did I say in Korean? With the word you can say 같은 단어를 계속해서 반복해서 말하면 쉽게 단어를 외울 수 있습니다. Which means if you repeat the word again and again, then you can remember the word very easily. Okay, next we have 읽다, which means to read. With the word you can say 한국어를 잘하고 싶으면 어린이 책을 읽어보세요. Which means if you want to be fluent in Korean, then try to read children's book. 어린이 책 means children's book, and even Korean children's book has very interesting stories. So you love that and you'll be able to improve your reading skills. Next we have 배우다, which means to learn. With the word you can say 일본어를 알면 한국어를 배우기 쉽습니다. Which means if you know Japanese, learning Korean is much easier. There are many things similar to each other. Next we have 언어, which means language. Well, like if your friend is speaking, different languages fluently, then you can say, 너 언어를 몇 개나 하는 거야? Which means, hey you, how many languages do you speak? 너 is something like, hey you, and 언어 means language. Different spelling, but the same pronunciation. And, okay, that's all we have for this week. I'll see you next week. 다음 시간에 뵙겠습니다. 안녕히 계세요. 공부하다, which means to study. Study with KoreanClass101.com. Hi everybody, Jay here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of the most common Korean questions. The question for this lesson is, when should I use the humble form of verbs in Korean? There are some verbs in Korean that have humble forms and don't sound like their casual counterparts. We use these verbs when we refer to ourselves in formal situations. Two examples are 드리다 and 여쭈다. These two verbs are used instead of 주다 and 묻다 for to give, and to ask respectively. Let's do some examples so you can learn how to use the humble forms of these verbs correctly. Let's say you want to ask a professor a question. How do you say, I'd like to ask you something? To show respect to your professor, you should use the humble form of to ask, 여쭈다, and say, 뭐 좀 여쭐게요. 좀 is another verb that makes your sentence sound softer. It sounds more polite than saying, 뭐 좀 물어볼게요, because it uses the humble verb. Let's do another example. Now, you want to ask whether or not your classmate has turned in a group report. How do you say, did you give it to the professor? Here, even though you're talking to your friend, you're talking about the professor. So you still need to use the humble form and say, 교수님 드렸어? Did you give it to the professor? Here's a challenge. How can you say to your friend, give it to me, I'll give it to the professor? That's right. We need both 주다 and 드리다 for these sentences. 주다 for the first sentence and 드리다 for the second sentence. So you'll get 나 줘, 내가 교수님 드릴게, meaning give it to me, I'll give it to the professor. How was this lesson? I hope that clears things up. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. See you next time. 다음 시간에 만나요.
Want to learn Korean anywhere, anytime? Get the Innovative Language 101 app for free.
Hi everyone, I'm Jae-hui. In this video, we'll see top 10 hardest words to pronounce. 경찰청, police department. 경찰청, police department. So I think it's because CH sound, like when it's placed next to each other, I think it's going to make the word not easy to pronounce. 경찰청, 경찰청. And it also has 이응, 응 sound at the end of each character. So 경찰청. 경찰청 청창살은 왜 청창살이냐, 쌀청창살이냐, something like that. 경찰청 철창살은 왜 철창살이냐, 쌍철찰상이냐. But you know, like Korean people also have the hard time to read this word correctly when it's in the middle of the sentence. 교통사고가 나서 경찰청에 갔습니다. Which means I had a car accident, so I went to the police department. 계획, plan. 계획, plan. I think when it has double vowel like OE of 획, it's not heck, it has to be 획. That is the one making this word not easy to pronounce. So make sure that you say 계획, not 계획. So with the word you can say 이번 여름에는 제주도에 갈 계획입니다. Which means this summer I have a plan to go to Jeju Island. 과일, fruit. 과일, fruit. This one also has the double vowel, 과. So it's not 가. It should be 과, 과. So with the word you can say 과일을 사러 경찰청 앞에 있는 슈퍼마켓에 갔습니다. Which means I went to a supermarket in front of the police department to buy fruits. 귀여운, cute. 귀여운, cute. It should be 귀, not 기. So 귀여운. So as a slang, we sometimes say 귀여운. Instead of saying 귀, we say 기 to make it sound a little bit more cute. You know, when you talk in a formal situation, you have to make sure that you say 귀, not 기, 귀여운. And if you know the word 귀염둥이, which means darling or cutie, you can say 우리 귀염둥이는 정말 귀엽습니다, which means my darling is very cute. 똑똑한, smart. 똑똑한, smart. So let me give you 3 examples. 똑똑한, 톡톡한. Can you see the differences? For Korean, it sounds totally different between each other. So 똑똑한 has double 드 sound. So make sure that you read it correctly. You might need to practice a little bit more and say 똑똑한. You cannot say 똑똑한. You cannot say 톡톡한. You have to say 똑똑한. Don't worry if you cannot see the differences yet. You'll master that if you watch Korean pronunciation series. So you can say 내 동생은 매우 똑똑합니다, which means my younger brother is very smart. 맛있다, delicious. 맛있다, delicious. So it's okay because even some Korean people sometimes just by mistake say 맛있다, but actually the correct pronunciation is 맛있다. So you can say 너가 만든 음식은 정말 맛있다. The food that you made are so delicious. You can say 남대문 시장에 가면 맛있는 음식을 쉽게 먹을 수 있습니다. Which means when you go to 남대문 market, you can try delicious food easily. 사람, person. But it should be a little bit softer S sound and say 사람, 사람. So it shouldn't be 사람. So with the word you can say 사람이 많은 곳에는 가고 싶지 않습니다. Which means I don't want to go to a crowded place. So crowded place in Korean can be said 사람이 많은 곳, which literally means the place which has a lot of people. And this word can be plural, so you can simply say 저는 똑똑한 사람을 좋아합니다, which means I like smart people. 사랑, love. 사랑, love. The same thing, like you have to say 사랑 with a softer S, not 사랑. And make sure that you pronounce 응 sound correctly. 사랑, not 사랑, 사람, or something else. 사랑, 사랑. So you can say 저는 사랑하는 사람이 생겼습니다, which means I recently got someone whom I love. And also you can say 사랑하는 사람을 저는 귀염둥이라고 부릅니다, which means I call the someone whom I love as 귀염둥이. 일요일, Sunday. 일요일, Sunday. When the word has the same syllable at the beginning and at the end at the same time, it's not easy to pronounce. For example, 일요일, 일요일. If you read it syllable by syllable, you can say 일요일. But when you say it as a one word, you have to connect it together and say 일요일. So you can say 일요일에 경찰청에 갔습니다. On Sunday, I went to a police department. Or 일요일에 과일을 사러 슈퍼마켓에 갔습니다, which means on Sunday I went to a supermarket to buy fruits. 철창살, grill bar. 철창살, grill bar. Okay, that would be the hardest word that I also feel like it's not easy for me to pronounce. So 철창살, it also has two CH sounds, so it should be not easy to pronounce. And especially this word, we use the same long phrase to practice it with the 경찰청. So let me try that again. 경찰청 철창살은 왜 철창살이냐, 쌍철찰상이냐. And also we have another way with these words. For example, 중앙철 창살은 쌍철살이고 시청의 창살은 외철살이다. But I can also read it correctly. This is that much hard. So if you want to find a good tongue twister in Korean, this is the word that you can pick. Okay, that's all top 10 hardest words to pronounce. Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure to subscribe. I will see you next time. 다음 시간에 뵙겠습니다. 안녕히 계세요. Hi everybody, Jay here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Korean questions. The question for this lesson is, why does Korean have two words for my? The word 저희 literally means of I or mine. It has two words. 저 means I, and 의 is the possessive particle meaning something like of. 제 is the simplified form of the word 저희. In normal daily conversation, Koreans use 제 instead of 저희. If you want to make your sentence more casual, you can also use the word 네. 네 is the simplified version of the word 나, meaning I, and 의, the possessive particle. Let's do some examples so you can learn how to use each word for my correctly. When you introduce yourself at a job interview, you should use 제. For example, 제 이름은 이재휘입니다. My name is Jae-hee Lee. However, if one of your close friends introduces you to a new friend, you can use the casual one, 네. 내 이름은 이재휘야. I'm Jae-hee Lee. Let's say you want to introduce your younger sister to your friend. If you're introducing her to someone younger than you, you'd say 내 여동생이야. It's my younger sister. Or if you're introducing her to someone older or your superior, you should use the humble form of mine and say 제 여동생이에요. One more thing. Did you notice how formal sentence endings 입니다 and 요 pair with 제? Please remember to use the formal sentence endings when you use the word 제 to an elderly or superior. How was this lesson? Pretty interesting, right? Please leave any more questions in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. See you next time. 다음 시간에 만나요. Hi everybody, Jay here. Welcome to Ask a Teacher, where I'll answer some of your most common Korean questions. The question for this lesson is, does yo make everything more polite in Korean? The short answer is yes. With the particle yo, you can make words sound more polite. So how can you make a sentence ending with yo? Here are some rules. First, let's do a very simple one. When the verb stem ends in a vowel like the ka in 가다, meaning to go, you can simply replace 다 with yo. We don't need any additional particles. However, when the verb stem ends in a consonant like 놀 in 놀다, meaning to play, we need the extra vowel 아 before yo to say 놀아요. But that's not all. In Korean, we have some vowels called negative vowels. For example, u, and 으. When the last vowel of the word is a negative one, you will need to use instead of 아. Here's an example. 먹 is the verb stem of the verb 먹다, meaning to eat. The verb stem ends in a consonant, so you might think you need to add 아 and say 먹어요 to make it polite. However, this is not correct. Remember, we also need to check the last vowel, and this time the last vowel of the verb stem is which is negative. So you need to say 먹어요 using Sounds complicated, right? Don't worry. As you hear more verbs with the yo particle, it will come more naturally to you. Let's do one more example because we have one final rule for using the particle yo. A lot of Korean verbs are made with 하다, meaning to do. For example, 공부하다, meaning to study. When you want to make a 하다 verb polite, just replace 하다 with 해요. So 공부하다 becomes 공부해요. Since there are so many 하다 verbs in Korean, you can practice with the 하다 verbs first. Then you only have 2 more conjugation rules to master. Is this still confusing? You get the hang of it with more practice. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comments below and I'll try to answer them. See you next time. 다음 시간에 만나요.